I would like to invite to this panel Anna Apostol, co-founder and COO at Mate Academy. Anna Apostol actually co-founded Mate Academy 10 years ago, and Mate Academy currently operates in Ukraine, Poland, and Brazil. Team comprises 140 full-time and 170 part-time employees. And to date, the company has secured 2.5 million in investments. Forbes Ukraine recognized Anna as one of the top 25 women leaders in Ukraine. So happy to have you, Anna, here.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here.
Our next panelist is Mathias Eklöf, entrepreneur, investor, Hype Venture. He is Swedish-Finnish serial entrepreneur and economist turned investor. Yeah, you can go that way. He co-created the Pareto MBA for busy people who want to boost their business confidence, and the founder of impact investment company Hype Ventures, and its investments include UScan, Tarkofi, Dietrix, Legal Noodles, Detrix AI. So he's quite experienced in doing investments in Ukraine. Now I would like to invite Deborah Fairlamb, founding partner at Green Flag Ventures. Deborah is Green Flag Ventures is a venture capital firm based in both US and Ukraine. Come on over. And invests focusing on early stage dual use Ukrainian tech startups. Deborah has over 10 years of experience living and working in Kyiv. So you probably met her before, working both for USAID project and working with tech sector. And before that, she has a significant tenure in global private wealth management. So you'll hear, like some good tricks how to work with both a venture capitalist and other institutional investor. Oleksandr Kosovan, president of Diia.City United, founder and CEO of MacPaw, and his third hat today, he's co-founder of SMRK investment fund. Anton Waschuk will join us online. He's Director of Innovation, Education, and Entrepreneurship at Ukraine-Moldova Enterprise Fund. He believes in team, he believes in Ukraine, and actually he's scouting for u.ventures. Thank you, Anton, for joining. We have Oleksii Yermolenko, co-founder and partner at Flyer One Ventures, Forbes Europe 30 under 30, board at UVCA and Techosystem. He joined Genesis R&D, who is co-founding company of our association during the early growth stage, then co-founded Flyer One, where he is responsible for decision-making process and execution. And he got into Ukrainian Forbes 30 under 30 in 2022 and into European in 2024. So welcome. I know that Oleksii will have to leave us at 6:05 sharply. I mean, that's the life of investor, you're like, you have meetings coming after meetings. So maybe it's a good sign. So let us start our panel from actually, going to basic. Oleksandr, my question is to you. What attracts venture capitalists at this stage? What you are looking for when you are looking at the pitch deck that you are receiving?
Yeah, hello again. So you might know, might not know that SMRK invests on the early stages. Well, it's not the very, very early stages like the seed and pre-seed, but we invest from 200,000 up to 2 million startups. And on this stage, you as a company, you don't have much traction yet. So you might have already some team, you might have some very early sales, but it's very hard to judge the company by their dynamics and their metrics. So on this stage, what we definitely want to understand is this idea feasible? Is this technically possible? is there is a real problem for the real audience that you want to solve. And of course, on this stage, we can at least somehow determine the team and their composition. Will they be able to make this idea possible or not? So unfortunately, there is not much other data that we can receive. So what startups could provide us is, clear definition of the problem they are solving, clear definition on how they are planning to solve this problem, and the market opportunity, and the great pitch deck.
And actually, what are the key issues based on your experience that startups should consider while they are deciding whether they should start fundraising at this stage? Because we've heard the first panel, maybe that's not actually the way, of moving forward.
I believe at this market conditions, it's really extremely difficult to bootstrap the company unless you have some family capital or really good friends. It's really hard to build any business with your own money. So I believe that the venture capital way is one of the very few options that startups can choose nowadays.
Yeah, I think at this stage, friends, fools, and family are over. So not that much of them, unless you are, from family of 20 sibling or 12 sibling. Now I'm moving to Anna. I mean, you've gone through all stages, through a few stages up till now. And we talked a lot about MVP. We talked a lot about market, about scaling. What is the transition from MVP to a scalable product? You're now being in Poland and Brazil, and actually it's not, I don't think that that's kind of a choice that you are got out of the blue.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm really happy to be invited to be here. Just as short, I will give a short background. Mate Academy is an edtech startup. We have a LMS system where I teach students online, and everyone has the possibility to get a career in IT. We already placed 4,000 students in Ukraine and other countries, and we operate in 3 countries, Ukraine, Brazil, and Poland. Talking about our history, I founded Mate 10 years ago, and it was kind of tough way, but we reached this point where we are now. What can I say? We started from offline courses, small offline courses with 5-10 students in group. It was in Kyiv, in small rooms, in some bad offices, and we taught students offline with teachers, with whiteboards, with etc. It was kind of lecture like we have in university or schools. And now we have a strong LMS system. We integrated AI tools. We have all homeworks on the platform. We automated all what we could automate it. I mean, the work of our internal employees. We automated our platform. We can check our students' homework using AI and using autotest. If you talk about the programmers. What can I say? It was a long road, but at the end we have our product, and now having this product online, we can teach students online. We move from offline to online, and we did it before COVID. It was hard to believe, is it possible to teach so many students online? And now we understand that it's helped us to scale our business, and also we integrated our content using AI for different languages, and it helped us to launch our businesses in Brazil, Poland, and we can scale this in other countries. The main point which you should follow when you launch in your startup, I think the first one, you should always measure the feedback from your customers. We always measure NPS of our students. Also, we collect every day after the lecture, we collect the feedback about lecture, about coordinators' work, about teachers' work, about our platform. It's helped us to improve our products. It's helped us improve our programs very quickly, and we can react because we see the market, and we can react quickly and change our programs. The second one is also important. You should make data-driven decisions. For example, we covered the performance of each department having with dashboards. I have the analytic which show me the performance of all my departments, and I can make data-driven decision very quickly because I see this metrics and I understand which red flags I have now and what should I do with them. Also, the next one is documentation. I remember when our CEO asked me to write the documentation, I was really unhappy, the boringest part of my work, but we did it. We covered every process with documentation, and it's helped us a lot when we launched Brazil and Poland because we could onboard each employee very quickly having this documentation because all processes are documented. What else? And maybe also the important one, I think it's hiring. Each co-founder should be involved in hiring process. I remember before we had 60 people at Mate, we didn't have any recruiters, any recruiter team, and each founder, co-founder had to recruit themselves, each team member. It was tough time because you should combine your current responsibilities with hiring staff, but it's really important. And even now when we have a great team and we have all hiring process, we still took a part in the final stage of the hiring processes. Someone of co-founders should be there. Yeah, it's kind of the main tips. And that's also important for developers, like you should provide A/B tests. And if we make some decision about what should we develop next, which feature we should develop next, we make this decision having the results of our A/B tests. Yeah, that's it. We're trying to follow these rules, and it's helped us to be there when we are, and to make such a product like we have now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Actually, that's I think that we are doing a follow-up of what has been discussed on the first panel, but now the scale is large. And actually, the mistake would cost you more because you already got some money, not from friends, fools, and family. You got some money from investors that would also look at your dashboards, or I mean, not dashboards, but something out from the dashboard. Anton, I just want to follow up on actually issues that Anna raised. She raised the issue of founders being involved in hiring, and I would like you to talk more about actually building a strong team in terms of actually improving your products, and how it would help you to attract, investor at this stage. What the investors are looking at this stage in terms of teams.
Hi, Nataliya, thanks. So I think there's 3 key things that we should be looking at when we're trying to build a strong team. So the first is really looking at the team as a multiplier effect. And so what we're looking at there is looking at diversity and skill, global experience, and adaptability. And so obviously we're looking at Ukrainian companies going global. And so you need to have people who understand the target regions, the cultural and operational sort of elements there. And so what I would suggest initially would be to look at, again, in the past panel, we saw Ivan talk about not repeating or not innovating too much, but looking at what your competitors are doing and looking at their teams and seeing if you could reach out and see if anybody there is willing to join you in your search for building something in the global market that you're looking to do. The second would be looking at product localization. And so really understanding that without adaptation, you want to focus on what the customer's pain is in that target region. And so this means investing not only, of course, in language, but looking at more particularly what kind of design they might like, looking at what the compliance is with also local regulations there. So I think that's important when we're looking at building a strong team. And lastly is really putting in place a continuous improvement culture in the company. And so it's really building a feedback loop between the market insights you're getting when you're looking at these local markets and then building them with your product team. So I think if you do this, you'll really have a strong team in place and investors will enjoy that.
Thank you, Anton. Now, Oleksii, turning back to you, actually, I mean, how do us or startups or scale-ups at this stage would find the right investor? Sector agnostic or sector specific? Like strategist, smaller, bigger. I mean, how do you navigate this landscape at this stage?
Anna, thank you for the question. Basically, I truly believe that it depends on the founder's personality, because there are people who believe and have a trust in brands. They will go only after the big brand names like Sequoia, Andreessen, Tiger, etc. But the catch is, as it usually happens with work, is that the most important thing is the actual partner you will work with. And in the sector agnostic fund, you might have a split between founders. They might invest in all over the models, but they might have people who focus on something. That's one thing. Another thing is, if you have such an option as a founder, I would definitely go for partners and funds who have a deep expertise in what you're building. Because there is a fantastic interview at 20VC with Gary Stebbins, and founder of Flow. He told that general advice is always bullshit advice, because all situations are very nuanced. So the more nuanced and deeper in the context person or partner you might find in the VC, the better you would have chances to win this game. So I would go for specifics.
Thank you. And actually now we're moving to this boring, I call it boring legal and financial stuff. Like me as a lawyer by background, working in top 2 Ukrainian legal consulting firm, I would always see people, stop smiling when they hear, words like due diligence, like financial documents, like balancing equity convertible bonds and other financial instruments. And, even people here, some are smiling because I know that they are working on that. Some are not. Some are getting more, bored. So let's talk about that. And Deborah, I want, you to start talking about this issue in terms of key issue for startups when they are preparing for investment rounds, in terms of due diligence, legal structure, financial docs.
So I agree that the product is the second thing, and the legal due diligence, the finance is all of the everybody rolls their eyes. But I have to tell you, actually, long term, it is these things that are the foundation of a strong company that is going to take your product to market, that is going to find your clients. So these are incredibly important foundational pieces that are going to help you long term. In the context of how we are doing due diligence, my business partner is located in the United States, and we have somebody in the U.S. who helps us do due diligence. We are following what you would consider a very traditional VC how to stamp those due diligence process. So it is very intense. We are drilling down absolutely all of the detail. That means we want to see all the financials, we want to talk to your clients or customers or the done. There we are. Nobody likes asking questions, but nobody likes challenge certain things. But how respond to those extremely challenge. If you're getting emotional or sort of upset about something working you at, you're going to have a real hard time responding when clients or your product. So it's just kind of an indication of how someone's going to respond to the challenges. Because as it's been mentioned, this is a marathon, it's a long haul in the relationship, building the company. A great demonstration for us of fortitude. One of the other things that we look closely at, is sort of the financials, and I don't mean it in the context of the numbers exact. Somebody mentioned the numbers are never spot on. The way you structure your financials actually tells us very much how you think. It tells us, are you thinking forward, or what are the potential problems? What other revenue lines could you be looking for? So that's a really important kind of indicator. And then another one is just in terms of, several people have also mentioned just how much client feedback there has been. And if you're going from MVP up to, some kind of a scale up at this point, the more client feedback you have, the better. This is one of the most critical points in the context of understanding, what that next step is. So in terms of the structuring of the basics of the company, having the legal documents in place, all of these things, you know, if we start down, we might love a company, love the product on the surface, it's all pretty and shiny. But if you get on the call with us and you don't have the documents and you don't have some of these things already in place, that probably is close to the end of where the conversation is going to go until you're ready to talk about, you know, kind of the real foundations of building the business.
So do your homework, basically.
It's not just do your homework. It's literally like putting the work in. Nobody likes doing the financial plans. I get it. But this is also a really good process for you to get ready and to understand, you know, what your next stage of growth, where do you have to be going forward? And as for a couple of companies we put through due diligence, we've had them come back and say, thank you. We didn't exactly enjoy that, but we actually now know we are really and truly ready for, you know, what comes next.
Thank you, Deborah. Mathias, actually, you know, when we were discussing this panel, you raised two issues that people usually, actually startups usually don't talk about. The first one is sustainable competitive advantage, and that's what investors are looking. And actually the other issue is going small versus going big. I would start here maybe with this competitive advantage, because like that's not the thing that is often discussed.
Yeah, thanks. So I have 30 minutes or 3 minutes?
You have 3 minutes.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just latch onto something Deborah said, which I'm happy to hear, which is that we're building a company, we're building a business. So we're not using the word startup as much here, which I really like, because actually the principles of building a company or a business are the same, no matter if it's a teeny tiny startup or a later stage company. And when you have this kind of startup mindset, often you kind of forget about the fact you're building a company. But yeah, and one of those things then that you should think about from day one when you build your company is your moat or your moats. I don't know if anybody in here heard the term moat. It's used a lot by Warren Buffett and the late Charlie Munger. Maybe a reef, something like this in Ukrainian. Yeah, like nobody heard about moat. So Ukraine has a problem, yeah? One hand, we have one, two,
3.
We have a few, okay.
I don't know, 4.
So this is important, right? So what is a moat? Well, a moat is a protection around your business, you know, filled with, you know, water, crocodiles, whatever. But actually what it is in terms of business is a sustainable competitive advantage. So you should really, really think about that. And when you scale and grow your company, you should think about it. You should think about it even before that. Now, what is a moat? Well, it's not your team slide where you have 3 guys who did 5 crypto projects and made a lot of money. That's not your moat. Your moat could be if you have efficient processes, if you have a lower cost structure for some reason, or if you have network effects, for example. These are just some of the sources of moats that you can have. But if you talk to us and you don't have an idea about your moat, then it's hard to talk about that. And that's even before you get to the kind of due diligence stage where you look at all the documents and all the rest of it, right? So you have to have an idea about your moat. Now, you can see, if you go like searching for a moat, you will find that in the financial statements, for example, when you look at the margins. So if you have a high gross margin, that could be a sign that you have a moat. But yeah, don't forget about the moat. And when you pitch your company, you should definitely mention what your moat is today and what it's going to be in the future, maybe. So if I can just take 30 seconds more. Yeah. So one other point is this question about like starting small or like going small or going big, right? You might think there's a contradiction there, that it's like a paradox, but it's actually not. So what you should do, and this is advice from guys like Peter Thiel, who actually know something, right? You should start small and dominate a niche. It's much better to have 90% market share in a teeny tiny market than to have 1% market share in a big market. So as an investor, or as investors, we see a lot of pitch decks that have total addressable market, a TAM of 57 billion, gazillion, trillion, right? And I mean, no investor is seriously going to think that you're actually going for that TAM, like seriously. So it's much better to start small and dominate something, and you might have a moat in that niche that you dominate. So if you build a CRM system, you don't build a general CRM system for every business out there. Maybe you build a CRM system for, dog kindergarten or, cat cafes or whatever. And then you dominate this niche, and then you go to other pets, and then you go to agriculture, and then you go to whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before Oleksii jumps off our panel, I want to get back again to the boring stuff, balancing equity, convertible bonds, and other financial instruments. I think at this stage, it's rather important to start thinking about all this.
Yes, you as a startup, you might want to go with convertible notes or convertible bonds, whatever. That's the instrument that allows you to make the process a little bit faster, a little bit easier, unless you have time and resources to spend on structuring equity rounds, which you usually don't. And a separate interesting thing that actually happens a lot these days is the venture debt financing, and which is especially relevant for B2B SaaS companies that have pretty much stable, hopefully, revenue retention and things. So we have at least four portfolio companies that have raised venture debt during the last half year, which is quite an option. But there is a catch. There's a but that usually comes along. The but is an idea that when you grow a company with equity, you get used to building up relationship with investor that usually understand that the startups, many things might go wrong. Going wrong is basically a standard way of living within the startup ecosystem and philosophy. But if something going wrong with equity investors, they might support you. They might give another round or breach or whatever. But if something goes wrong with debt providers, you will have actual penalties. You will have actual covenants and terms and interest that is building up on and on. So for companies, venture debt might be a great option to extend the runway, not using the most expensive thing you have in your company, the equity. But you should be very cautious and stress test your financial health to understand whether you can service this debt properly. And actually in Genesis, given that we have many consumer products, I don't know whether people know, but Apple doesn't pay you the sum of revenue after each month. They have their own calendar, and some months are missing. So you have zero revenue, like cash paid in some month, but then you have 2x in the next, for example. And for these things, we also use financial providers. So financial providers, debt things are good, but you should be really well stress tested and serious about serving these obligations.
Thank you, Oleksandr. It's like there are always buts in every choice that you make. Actually, now coming more to exciting issue, and I would like to talk more about how you pitch at this stage. And actually, and here I would like Anton to start. I mean, how do you pitch at this stage? And what are the tips? I mean, how you do that? Does it actually differ somehow from the way you do it at the pre-seed?
So I'll start off by saying, beyond the classic metrics of a good business, I think there's, again, 3 characteristics that you want to demonstrate to the investors. So the first one would be showing a higher level of intensity for the business. So it means that you're showing that you live for the business, you have the highest interest in business success. And this is something that I think investors have a spidey sense for. When you talk with a lot of them, they say, okay, after the meeting, not only were there strong fundamentals, but there was also some level of intensity from that founder. And I like that. The second is building on what Oleksii said. Not only do you want to find an investor that has deep industry experience and knowledge, but you're also looking for someone who's not BSing you with their industry knowledge, but actually has it. And so that's something that at this stage you're going to be looking into for more detail. You're going to be looking, does the founder have this deep knowledge, and is he surrounded by a team that also demonstrates knowledge that provides that they're going to be building not only a product, but hopefully innovating on top of that. And then the last thing that we'd be looking for is someone who's really putting forward a contrarian approach to the industry or to the problem that's being solved. And so very often you're going to see someone with a business that is straight duplicate of something on the market. I think at this stage, you also want to prod as to why their product is slightly contrarian to the way things are currently being executed or adopted on the market. And I think if you lean into those three things on top of having sound business fundamentals, you'll be a bit more prone to winning over investor relations. And I think the last thing would be to demonstrate that some of your revenues are beyond the 1 year commitment that a lot of corporates put forward with their development budgets. So if you see that revenues are coming from different sources, but one of them are corporates, to see if those contracts are being renewed in the second year. And I think at that stage, we're looking at a reasonable business.
Thank you, Anton. Now I would like to actually continue what has been discussed at the first panel, how you build relations with investors at this stage, especially not those that are doing follow-ons, but the new ones that are coming. Oleksandr, I mean, we've heard here from Leon, from Leonid, that they would go to a bar, I mean, you know, to understand or to some more informal interaction with the founders. I mean, what's your suggestion here? I mean, how the startup should build relations with investors?
Well, I don't go to bars, so you probably won't meet me there. But nevertheless, the relations is something you also have to invest in. And even if you received no from the first meeting, or from the first pitch, it doesn't mean that you have to stop. Sometimes investors are just looking for like how the startup will evolve. Will you surpass the challenges that you currently have, and what PR or some other activities will you produce in the following months? So the relations can, from the first meeting to the actual investments, can take sometimes years, especially with the bigger funds. So don't lose confidence, and please continue to update the investors with some good news, with your progress. And maybe some investors may be interested in the updates that you are sending. Like, for example, you signed an agreement with some large enterprise customer, and this may completely change the perspective on how they look on your startup. So yeah, you have to continue to be persuasive, and build relations for the long term.
Anna, I mean, from your experience, you know, as a founder, what's you know, I mean, the common mistakes that startups are making at this stage? We are very limited on time because we have like one more very important question.
Okay, I think the most valuable mistakes, it was when we started international expansion too late. I can one advice from my side, I can recommend to start this when you just operate in Ukraine, think how you should scale your business in somewhere in other countries. And it's even if you operate in Ukraine and you have Ukrainians people in your team, just hire international people, communicate in English, switch internal communication to English. It's really important. It's which help you to scale really quickly to another countries. And the second point, do not copy your competitors. Just very short story. In 2018, we were invited to YC. We applied to YC, and we went to the final. And we went to the San Francisco, and we got a rejection on the final stage from Sam Altman. It's a CEO of OpenAI now. And why? Because our niche was taken by another company, which called Lambda School. Now it's Bloom Tech Academy, and we followed his CEO Austin in Twitter, and we saw that they launched so many cool things, features every day, and they raised $100 million after YC, and we was trying to copy some features, but we didn't get any like good results, and we decided, okay, just unfollow him. And within and we started to launch our own features and like our own approach. And within like a few years, we saw that they closed their offices in many countries. They got many negative feedbacks from students, and they had some staff layoffs, etc. It means that in social media, everything could be really cool, but it doesn't matter that it works internally. That's why build your own product.
Thank you, Anna. Now I just want everybody to follow on what Anna just said. What is one common mistake that you would flag here? I mean, kind of a red flag. Don't do that, or like think about that. One, just like go like a blitz. Who want to start? Deborah, go ahead.
Too high valuation, too early.
Yeah, makes sense. Oleksandr?
Well, dilute too much of your equity on the early stages.
Go for a super huge total addressable market.
And can I say one more? Do not try to launch ideal product. Just operate quick and fast.
Yes, Oleksii, your last minute. We are like catching your time.
Perfect. Not firing fast enough.
Anton?
Going global right away. You should. Don't focus on internal too fast.
That was actually a good blitz, and thank you, Oleksii. I know that you have to go, but there is one last issue that we might not like, but we have to address. It's a risk associated with Ukraine. How you deal with the risk associated with Ukraine? Just, or how you are dealing with it when you are talking with other, investors, or when you're talking with Ukrainian business. Anna told that, diversifying, going global and hiring some team abroad, that's also the way of dealing with the risk in Ukraine. We have like 6 minutes, so I want all of you just to jump in with a couple of sentences on that. Who want to start? Anton, do you want to start?
Sure. I think, leaning on operational diversification is very important. So, of course, you just mentioned always stressing that you have a distributed team model in place, focusing on EU, US, and of course, in Ukraine. But one other thing I think is important to stress, and this is as an ecosystem in general, we should all be selling Ukraine as an investment destination with one single voice and citing really the resilient data on growth points that are currently occurring here. So I think if everybody does this within their pitches, it's going to have a cumulative effect on the investor community as well if they all hear it.
Thank you. Oleksandr, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I can follow up as a company, not as an investor, because we also operate in Ukraine. So what we try to do is to have like business continuity processes in the company. So we have critical roles for many roles, and we have people who would replace them in case of mobilization or some other bad things that will happen. We have people that are distributed globally. So some roles are abroad in case of we have a blackout in Ukraine and the people here will not be able to operate. So there are people who can support them in case of the emergency. And we are trying to diversify the people so they could be interchangeable. So if one drops out, other will follow. Of course, in the organization, it's very hard to maintain this because you have to invest a lot of time into training, into collaboration, and especially now it's difficult because everyone is remote. But nevertheless, we try to do it, and it works because we are stably operating nowadays. But as an investor, we continue to invest in Ukraine. We know how hard it is to build business here, but we still believe in people in Ukraine, in our resilience, and we want to show an example that do not stop doing what you're passionate about. Continue to follow your dreams.
Contingency plan,
Mathias.
Yeah. So I think these operational things are important. That's what you should do. You should have, processes in place, protect your people, have them work remotely, all that stuff, right? Like you should do that for sure. The second component, if I can be a bit sort of controversial or non-mainstream here. So I would love to see the Ukrainian tech community think about what a functional system of society in Ukraine for the future will look like when you have this fucked up neighbor that you have. So they are not going to go away in the near term, unfortunately, probably, we don't know. But what does a mobilization system that's fair look like?
Yeah.
And how can you push for that as a community? Because you need to fix that, right? Like if we invest, we're going to invest anyway. We made 15, 16 investments here. Last one, a few weeks ago. So we will keep investing, but I would love to see for Ukrainians to push for that, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So we know that, okay, when you are 18, you will do your military service, no matter if you're a boy or a girl, but you have a Ukrainian passport, you do it, and you do it like 6 months or whatever. And then you can get called up for military service later on, and then you will serve for 6 months, and then you will rotate back to your job or whatever. So there's clarity and transparency around the whole thing, right? Israel would be maybe one example. Finland is another one. I have a Finnish passport. I'm a Finnish citizen. Finland has an amazing system of training and mobilizing their population. So that's some sources of inspiration.
Thank you. Actually, that's good to hear, because we, I always say we're living in a bubble. We're talking to each other, okay, we're traveling abroad, but sometimes we really need to hear, like the outsider's view on what's going on. And in terms, if we want our startups going global and get money and get investments abroad, we have to understand how the world sees us from abroad. We have 1 minute left. So I would do the last blitz here. One takeaway from this panel you want people to go and have, and to take with them. One takeaway, a blitz. Anton, do you want to start?
Sure, just one point. If there's one key takeaway, build international, have global partners, global team members. That's the first step to going global.
Okay, who wanna continue? Yeah, Oleksandr.
Well, no matter how bad the situation is, do not stop believing in your dreams and solving the problems for the people. The crises will always end at some point of time, but you will continue to operate as a company. We started our company in 2008 on the rise of the global crisis, and it's been a great journey.
Deborah.
I think there is a opportunity for people to not sit and say, why aren't more people investing here in Ukraine? Because actually, that's not exactly how it works around the world. Money, actually, the market goes to the money. So even in the United States, there are very few startups that are outside of like the San Francisco cluster. So the fact that there is not necessarily a lot of money here is not necessarily reflective of the fact that there are not extraordinarily good startups. And I think to the point of all of this about going global, you have to understand where your clients are, where your market is, look to those places for potentially finding sources of funding.
Thank you, Mathias.
Yeah, think about your moats. And if you don't know what that is, or if you don't know what your moat is, then fix it.